Chapter 1. Pax. Mid-June 2014. Pax Wilson took his hand off the girl's bottom. If he was honest with himself, she was too old to call a girl. And leaned back to retrieve the still-lit joint from the ashtray on the bedside table. As he reached, he knocked over an open bottle of wine. Shit. Fortunately, the bottle was almost empty and spilt only a small puddle. He glanced at it. The stain was quickly being absorbed into the pattern of his expensive antique Turkmen rug. He turned back to the girl. Want another toke, babe? A still smoldering ash fell on the bed between them. Neither seemed to notice. Sure, honey. She took a hit. You know, no one says toke anymore, Pax, she said as she coughed out a cloud of smoke. He took the joint back and took a deep, experienced hit. Whatever, babe. You don't remember my name, do you? Why the hell do they always ask so many stupid questions, he thought. Sure I do, babe. He got out of bed and walked towards the big bay window, past the girl's leopard print dress and black brassiere on the floor. His own clothes had been tossed onto a beat-up armchair on top of the week's pile of dirty laundry. The bedroom had a distinctly hippie decor, strings of beads hanging in the doorway, a lava lamp with floating purple spheres on a beat-up wooden table under the window, and a poster of Alberto Cordo's famous photograph of Che Guevara on the opposite wood-paneled wall. Pax had bought the big house in Washington Street in San Francisco's Tony Pacific Heights neighborhood over a decade before, when he returned from India. Much of the furniture in it had been rescued from his old apartment in Haight-Ashbury down the hill. He picked up a hairband from the table bearing the treasured lava lamp and tied his long gray hair into a ponytail. Then, after a slight hesitation, he retrieved his iPad from the same table and walked back to the bed. What's that, Pax? The iPad had its headphones plugged in through some other tangle of wires. You want to surf the internet for some dirty pictures, huh? She had propped her head up with a pillow against the tall wooden headboard. I'll show you later, babe. He climbed into bed and slid his hand back onto her bottom. Lorraine. What? My name's Lorraine. Yeah, right. How old are you, Lorraine? She drew back in semi-feigned shock. That's not a question you should ask a lady. She looked at him appraisingly. But I suppose you're old enough for the truth. She paused, calculating. 45. Lorraine looked older to Pax. For decades, he had loved to pick up hippie girls in Haight-Ashbury. The younger, the better. But since his 60th birthday, his success rate in that arena had been declining to near zero. He wondered whether the really hot chicks, like Catherine at the office, would ever dig him again. At a recent Silicon Valley swingers party where everyone was looking for sex, he had been stunned to be rebuked with, "You're not exactly my cup of tea, old man," by a mini-skirted blonde with whom he had chatted over drinks for nearly an hour. So more and more often, like tonight, he was hunting in places where money mattered more and age less. It was more or less predictable to find an eager cougar or two in the bar at the top of the mark on Nob Hill, where Pax had met Lorraine. They might be looking for younger men too, but at least Pax's money was in with a chance. Lorraine's face and waistline might not be as pretty as he liked, but at least she had a nice ass and big breasts. Right, he said. So we're not as young as we used to be. I guess you're too young to remember the summer of love. She shook her head. He took the joint from the ashtray and had a hit as he lit it with a match. There was a lot of great sex then. He passed the joint to her. You're up for a good fuck, aren't you? Damn straight, honey, that's what I'm here for. And she turned out to be as good as her word. As soon as Lorraine came noisily on top, a minute or so after Pax, she rolled off him and fell asleep. This was what passed for a relationship in his life these days. Pax turned off the lamp beside the bed and gave mental thanks to women with a healthy sex drive who were willing to have a quick, no strings attached, or at least no strings expected, fuck or three with a successful bachelor. and for the little blue pills that allowed him to continue to enjoy them. Then, he fell asleep too. When Pax woke up, Lorraine was still asleep, snoring loudly. The clock read 4:23 a.m. Pax knew it was fruitless to try to doze off again. He had never needed much sleep, and got less and less as he aged. He spent a few minutes staring at the glowing lava lamp, thinking about his decision to hire a new CEO for Enlightenment Inc, the still struggling company he had founded 6 years before. Then he reached to the bedside table for the earphones and strange headset connected to the iPad. With a tap, he selected a yin and yang icon, and the screen lit up with a psychedelic pattern of moving colors. Vaguely Indian-sounding music began playing through the earphones and quickly settled into a hypnotic pattern, reminding him of the streets of San Francisco in the summer of love. Things had never really been as good as they were in that year of 1967, when the events in the city by the bay lured him there for good. Disturbed by thoughts of lost youth, Pax got out of bed and padded across the floor, to his cigarette papers and ziploc of weed nestling in their usual place of honor in an elaborately inlaid wooden box on top of the dresser. Rolling another joint, he settled back into bed with a sidelong glance at sleeping Lorraine and urged his mind to relax into the colors and sounds of the app. As he lit up, reality began to move sideways. The room became brighter and less distinct. In the coming months and years, Pax would understand that it was in these moments that his life went badly off course. But while it was happening, he did not notice that he was crossing a watershed, a line between his bedroom in Pacific Heights to a sunny 1967 summer afternoon in Golden Gate Park, the single best afternoon of his life. He was lounging on the grass under a cloudless blue sky as a gentle breeze fluttered the leaves of the surrounding trees, a welcome break from the typical fog and wind of San Francisco's summer. There was no need to hide their joints from the police, but out of habit, Pax and a few friends were tucked into a quiet corner of the park as they got high to the sounds of the sitar played by his friend O. O, just O, refused to reveal his real name, saying that the round letter connected him better with the wholeness of existence. Pax was almost dozing, contented, high, when she walked into his field of vision, snapping him suddenly wide awake, the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. A willowy vision with blonde ringlets topped by a garland of flowers, wearing a floating, almost transparent dress and an innocent expression as she chatted quietly with a less memorable brunette friend. In his transported, super-real return to the summer of love, Pax was spared the pain of his later disastrous split with the girl, Alice, and relived the moments as if for the first time. The two girls had stopped to talk with his group of friends, offering to share the loaf of bread and cheese they were carrying, and accepting music and grass in return. Even in a time of free love, Pax was scarcely able to believe his good fortune when Alice welcomed his interest. They drew quickly and effortlessly closer as the afternoon aged into dusk, holding hands for hours as they talked intently about Carlos Castaneda to the soundtrack of O's patient music. She gently made clear that anything beyond her hand was off limits in the park, but her reserve disappeared entirely once they ended up that same evening in the tiny bedroom in his shared apartment on Delmar Street. The memory of that day that came back to him most often in later years was of Alice astride him, her face intermittently obscured by her hanging hair as she moved. She wore an angelic expression as she quietly became more and more excited. So, returning to that magical summer evening, it was frightening and confusing for Pax when Alice broke her silence with loud grunts of pleasure, and her face suddenly and grotesquely aged 30 years. It took Pax several moments to realize where he was. Back in the bedroom in Pacific Heights, Lorraine was on top of him, coming again, holding in her left hand the tangled wires of the iPad headset that she had apparently torn from his head. This time, he didn't wait for her to roll off him, instead dumping her roughly onto the bed. "Get out." "What are you talking about, honey? We're damn good for a couple of oldies, aren't we?" He fixed her with a cold stare. "Get out." Pax didn't wait to see what Lorraine would do before he jumped out of bed, pocketing the unlit joint in the ashtray on the night table. Vaguely hoping that he wouldn't have to ask her to leave again, he pulled on his shirt and jeans and padded downstairs to make coffee. Fat bitch, he thought distractedly. He needed her gone for serious thinking about what the hell had just happened. He fell into a chair. What the hell had just happened? It wasn't a dream. He was wide awake when it started, and suddenly it was like he was there, in 1967. He felt dazed by the shifting reality. It had to be connected to the act.